Dying Light 2 has been on my radar ever since this amazing trailer was dropped way back in 2014. Then it went into like a multi-year hibernation and rose like a phoenix from the ashes last year. Now we got a brand spanking new trailer with 14 minutes of gameplay, and guys, it looks really good. To the point where I'm like, could this sneakily be my favorite game of 2023? I mean, there's a lot of really good games coming out this year, but I don't know, man, it has a chance. Just a couple months ago, I went back to play the original Dead Island and the spin-off Riptide, and both of them felt really good. Just mechanically, if you're looking just the bones of those games, I think they aged really well. So I'm happy to report, after looking at a lot of Dead Island 2 gameplay, it looks like those bones are maintained and sort of changed a little bit, but they've just elevated, the visuals and kind of things you expect from a game that comes out in 2023. Let's take a look at this gameplay. First of all, it might feel like Dead Island is ancient history because the games came out forever ago at this point. More recent was Dying Light, and they look kind of similar, but I do want to point out some differences. Dying Light is definitely the more mature cousin of these games, right? It's sort of more grounded, it's more parkour focused, and the story is more realistic, whereas Dead Island is the more pulpy, actiony version, where it's less about, oh my god, how are we going to survive, and more about how can I kill zombies in very cool ways, right? I played both of the franchises, and while Dying Light is impressive and just definitely a different flavor, Dead Island is more my speed. That's what I look for from a zombie game, just really fun, cool ways to kill zombies. And while this is just a very small slice of gameplay, I think they do a good job of showing off their dismemberment system. They call it flesh. You're slicing off very specific parts of the body and seeing how that affects enemies. I'm looking forward to actually using this, if I'm getting chased by a horde, aiming for their legs specifically to shoot them off or hack them off, whatever it may be. Now, this isn't entirely new. I mean, they did have some sort of system in Dead Island. I especially remember hitting the thugs' arms in order to break them so they were less deadly. But this is a sequel, so you expect them to take what they had and maybe push it a little bit further. That's what it seems like here. Plus, it just looks nicer, and similar to Dead Island, it's less about the realism and just more about delivering something that is visually pleasing. And so, yeah, I like what I'm seeing here. Let's take a detour and talk about the setting. Now, LA obviously is not an island, and I think that has been pointed out a million times, so I'm not going to focus too much on it. But what I am going to focus on is it looks really good. Like very bright, popping, vibrant colors. LA is obviously iconic, so I think it is a really nice setting to be turned into this apocalyptic zone where everything's gone to hell, and you're going to visit, places like Venice Beach, this famous hotel. I think it's going to have a little more value than just random island called Benoy. As I play more and more games, I realize how important the setting is to me. I think this is a really good setting because, yeah, it's just a zombie game. It's going to have a lot of familiarity with other zombie games you've played, but you know what? It's set in LA, which feels like this heightened version of reality where, yeah, they're leaning into the pulpiness of this iconic place. All right, let's dive into specifics. So this gameplay is with a character called Danny. There's going to be 6 different characters to choose from on launch, and they describe her as a brawler who is also agile and has a temper because she's Irish, of course. The first part of this video, she's dodging a ton and using the finisher attacks, like jumping on zombies' heads and almost like countering and getting an instant kill. And then the back half, they change up her build and show off kind of the skill card system, which we'll talk about later. And she's more of a heavy brawler where she's able to block attacks and sort of almost parry them, which is interesting, and take more damage but deal out more damage. But if you watch, I don't know, like 20 seconds of this gameplay, it's obviously really familiar, which I kind of like. I think that the people making this realized that the formula before was fine. Like, we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. We just need to elevate everything else, the visuals, the setting, whatever it may be. They spend a lot of time talking about different weapon types, and they look great. Again, very familiar, but great. The katana, for me, you can tell there's less force behind these swings. You have a higher chance to dismember, cut off arms, legs, heads, whatever. What really stood out most to me was the giant hammer gameplay, and I recognize this from the first games, but at the same time, it looks like there's a ton of weight behind these massive hammers. I'm always someone who likes to go for that kind of playstyle personally, so really excited about that. And then these claws, these electrified claws look really cool. There were claws in the first few games, but I don't know, just seeing them in higher definition in a newer game just gets me excited. Now they tell us this is a few hours into the game and they show us guns. So we have a pistol to show off the, dismemberment system. Then they show like a shotgun, an AK, all kinds of different weapons, even this big rifle. This was interesting to me because in the first game, you really don't get weapons or at least a reliable supply of ammo until you reach the city, which is really, the second half of the game. It's an interesting move to introduce that part of the gameplay earlier. And I kind of like it because it doesn't look like these are too overpowered. Like you've got some gameplay of the shotgun, which does decent damage, but this is not a one-shot kill sort of thing, which is nice. I think it's more appropriate to sort of introduce these earlier and make them part of the core gameplay loop instead of something where you get it towards the end of the game and it's like, oh, I pretty much win. I have guns now. They're better than all melee weapons. I'm just going to use those. Now, that's a projection by me. I don't know if that's exactly the case. Guns might be way better than melee weapons, but at least from what they're showing us right now, they look pretty even, which I think is a good thing. They give us a short but nice look at how their skill tree system is working, and instead of a skill tree, it's skill cards, which means you can swap different things in and out whenever you want. Gosh, that's just such a nice, refreshing take on skills, because I don't know about you guys, I don't think I can take many more games that have a giant skill tree where you make very small changes that you can barely feel in gameplay. The original Dead Island had that. You would, add like 3 to 5 points to every single little node, and then it would be like a 5% increase. No. Like, we're talking about skills that you can swap in and out, which just changes the way you're playing. And that is something that is exciting for me. Specifically in this gameplay, you start with the more agile build. Like I said before, you're dodging, you're counterattacking, to something where you're blocking, trying to parry, and then just dealing a lot of heavy damage, which does seem to make a difference. The thing with the original Dead Island was you had Sam B. He was the guy I always played with, and he was always a blunt weapons expert, so you kind of just stuck with that. But to see actual gameplay of, no, you can use different types of weapons, be more agile, or just block and use blunt weapons with the same character and not sort of see the diminishing returns of that is a good thing for me, and especially not having to go through an entire skill tree to reallocate those skills. It just looks refreshing compared to what we've had before and what we have in a lot of other similar type open world video games. They also spend time talking about environmental stuff and how effects are going to play a bigger role, and they really do show it off. You've got some zombies that are sitting in water, and you can electrify that water. You can light them on fire. They mention caustic, like toxic clouds that you can use against them. One thing I noticed specifically is these grenadier zombie types. It's really cool that you can actually shoot their grenades and then watch them explode around other zombies. Not a completely novel idea, but the way they sort of bring it to life with the animation, the way it looks, I think is really satisfying. And that's the thing for me. To quote Nikki Jakey, this is a goopy goblin gamer brain type of game. I want to see these explosions. I wanted to see the effects of the gameplay in this very, visceral way. And it feels like, yeah, that's what we've got here. In Dying Light 1, you could modify your weapons, you could upgrade them, you'd find cool mods on weapons, or you could craft your own mods onto an existing weapon that doesn't have one. This time it looks like they've elevated that as well. You've got a mod slot, but then you've got 3 perk slot, and then something called a fixed perk, which means it looks like you're gonna go out and try to find the perfect roll of a weapon that has the best fixed perk, and then you can go and add all of the mods and perks. That just means there's more variation with the types of weapons you're using, and yeah, seems like a good thing to me. We don't have a lot of looting gameplay. There is one small part where they go into a closet and grab a few supplies, but I don't want to be slowed down from my action too much. I want some light looting in order to do this crafting, but that's about it. Another thing you mentioned is something called curveballs, which are equipment types where you can throw, and if you look closely in the bottom left, they're on a cooldown. That means you're not crafting these consumables every single time you use them, you're using them and then you're waiting in order to use them again. Interesting choice, but again, it falls in line with the more action-y part of this game rather than the survival realism of having to make that every single time. The first 2 games, and really any open world game these days, are known for having a lot of side quests and then just the main mission, and we don't get a really good look at that in this gameplay. That's something I'd like to see in the future, but they do have this part where they walk up to a gate and this guy's like, hey, I really need your help with something. And then the narrator is like, no, actually, we're not going to do that. We're going to focus on the main mission. So it does look like there's going to be pockets of this game where you can explore a little more and do stuff at your own pace rather than barreling head at the main mission. Some of the better content in both Dead Island games are the side stuff. It really is about sort of going off and discovering things and seeing what you run into. And so I hope they lean into that, especially with this setting. There's a lot of wacky stuff that could go on in LA, and I hope that they realize that. But at the same time, I'm hoping for more quality than quantity. I don't need this to be longer than 40 hours. I think that's really a point where I start to get tired of video games these days. So give us some really memorable side missions, but not too many to where it feels like it's just padding the length and stuffing this thing. One more thing I noticed in this gameplay is the cutscenes, and these look a little more professional, I guess you could say. It looks like it pauses the world around you so you can watch this cutscene and then you get back into the world. I never really cared that much about the story in Dead Island, so this isn't like a nitpick or anything, just an observation. Overall, this extended gameplay and what they've shown before just shows me that, yeah, Dead Island 2 is something that looks like it is just building off of what was there before in new and exciting ways that get me excited as someone who played the original games. As someone who played the games before, it's exciting to see they didn't change all that much. It is sort of faithful to what came before, but you kind of hope that, yeah, there's adding enough to make it feel distinct and unique as a sequel, and also something that newer people can jump in and enjoy. It's about a month and a half away, so there's really not much you can sort of ask for at this point. They're just finalizing the game, but I'd like to see more like skill swapping. I want to see more gameplay of the different types of characters that are going to be in this game, just to see if there is a more unique play style I can get from choosing each one. And then I know they show the dark sort of hallway, Halperin hotel section, but I'd like to see some more horror type of sections. I think the original Dead Island games did a good job of sprinkling those in, where it's not so much survival horror, but yeah, they want to remind you this is a zombie game. It is supposed to be a little bit scary. Anyways, guys, I wanted to hop on and do this video. I know it's not normal for my channel, at least anymore, but just because I'm hyped about this, and Dead Island is a familiar franchise for me, so I'm absolutely going to be playing Dead Island 2 and, yeah, sharing that experience with you guys. So let me know what you think about this Dead Island 2 gameplay, if this is something you're going to pick up or pass, or maybe wait for a review or watch somebody else play it. I'd love to know your thoughts. That is it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed, remember to hit that like button. I'd appreciate it. Also, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this and hit the bell so you don't miss my next one. Thank you guys again for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.